Good afternoon or good morning, wherever you might be. Welcome to Webster Consulting's webinar. My name's Dave Webster, and we're here to talk about Google Apps.
I'm Paul Allen, and my company is Paul Allen Media, and I help companies with their online marketing, things like social media, content marketing, video production, that kind of thing. So I'm here to talk to Dave about Google Apps.
And I would just like to introduce Sheila Strover. She's joining us today. We want to make this webinar as interactive as possible, so if you would like to ask any questions, please feel free through the chat session, and Sheila will be interrupting us if necessary during this 30-minute broadcast with any specific questions. So please feel free to type away and ask us any questions you like. The more interactive, the better, as far as we're concerned.
We met, what, 18 months ago, something like that, I guess?
Yeah.
And we met at a networking function, and I was doing a talk on social media, and you asked me about Google, didn't you? And I was very disparaging of Google, actually, at the time, in terms of Google Plus, at least. Not really considering the potential it might have in terms of providing an audience to talk to that wasn't just other marketers. And we sort of got talking about that afterwards, didn't we? And we really became sort of friends out the back of that, really. And you started to talk to me about the possibilities that Google Apps and working in the cloud could have for my business. And I remember saying at the time that, oh, don't talk to me about Google, it's just an absolute mess. I've got accounts here, I've got YouTube here, I've got this, and I've got that, and I just don't know where I am, and I haven't got time to work it all out. And you just really sort of said, well, that's quite common, which was quite reassuring at that time, and then started to introduce me to an alternative way to sort this mess out. And what you did, as far as I can see, is change me from a Gmail application, if you like, to Google Apps. So I suppose we ought to start by talking about, well, what did you do? What's the difference between Gmail and Google Apps?
I think one of the things, or one of the benefits of Google Apps, is if you were in a situation like you were, and that's you had a Gmail account, you'd actually used a lot of the tools, but you didn't actually realize that because you've also got a business and a domain name, you didn't realize this Google Apps thing. So Google Apps really is an extension of Gmail. It's a commercial product versus a free advertised. You know, the Google Mail is free, but it's supported through an advertising program. So you can take your account, start fresh as we did with you, and consolidate all the different accounts you had within the Google Apps account. So primarily, to start with, you'll need a domain name, which is what you had, and then we set you up with a your name at yourdomainname.com, which means that you can now expand your business quite easily. So if you took on further employees, you can just add them, and then all the information that you use, you can then share with other future employees.
Because what I didn't realize, I suppose, was that was all these other sort of bits of software that were sitting up in the cloud that I could then have access to. So, for example, my huge music library was able to be backed up, and I was continually backing it up on those mini hard drive USB things, which often fail. So that was a really reassuring thing to be able to do. And obviously the sharing of documents, I was using things like Dropbox, but obviously there's a tool there, the Google Drive, which allows me to share with big files, things like videos with clients, which is really handy, and they all seem to be using it as well. So that was just a really neat way of working, I guess. But I love when you post on your Google Plus page, for example, about that, this is my office today. There's a picture of Caversham Bridge or something, you know, and it's rather nice there. And you're out there working on 4G, and you're just using these apps in the cloud. So I mean, I suppose really the flexibility, even for someone like me who works on my own, the flexibility that provides is quite good. But I guess there's real opportunity for businesses larger than mine where there's going to be more than one employee. So do you want to talk about that a bit? Because I don't really see that side of it with a small business as an owner-operator.
So what I'll do is we'll speak specifically about you, and then we'll build on that in terms of how that might work in a slightly bigger organization. So you're a bit of an Apple fan, so you've got the portfolio of Apple products. You've got an Apple MacBook Pro, and you've got an iPad and a MacBook Air. So in a sense, you love that technology, and with Google Apps, we enable you to continue to use that technology. But what we've done is consolidated a lot of your media and a lot of your files and a lot of your data into, I guess the easiest way to describe it is an Apple Mac Pro book in the cloud. But we've put everything on there, so all the application software and all the data and all the information you need to run your business now can be pulled from a cloud on any of those devices. So that's effectively what we did for you. But if you were to sort of increase that scenario to a company, say, of 10 or 20 people, what might likely be the case is, as in Google's case, for example, a lot of the employees at Google use MacBooks, but there'll be a server somewhere storing all the information, and that's called an on-premise system. So you have a server centrally within the organization that has to be maintained by somebody, and effectively that serves all the data to the individual client PCs or MacBooks or whatever. And so what you can do with Google Apps is get rid of that server. So that server goes into the cloud in effect. So if you used Microsoft Exchange, as many people do, you don't need to do that anymore. So typically a small company deployment might cost £15,000 or £20,000. If you were to move to Google Apps, and each account is on a user basis, so you pay £33 per user per year. So if you had 10 employees, you'd pay £330 per company. So it's a very cost-effective way of getting rid of old hardware, but still keeping an enterprise-ready level of commitment to not only your employees, but also your clients.
And of course, you haven't got to maintain that server, and you haven't got to keep updating it with new internals and hardware inside it, have you?
Absolutely. And some people actually, in a traditional on-premise solution, invariably most people use Microsoft Office, for example. So an upgrade from, say, Microsoft Office 2010 to 2013 might be done over a weekend. So everybody would go home on the Friday, come back on the Monday, and oh, there's a new system there. One of the benefits of using a cloud-based system is that it's upgraded constantly. So you might come in one day and something might have slightly changed. So one of the things that we like to promote as Webster Consulting is we've created, using Google Plus, which is another app as part of the Google Apps suite, is a community where we can let our clients know when upgrades are happening, so that everyone's aware when things might change.
So, I mean, I haven't really scratched the surface of what's available there. I mean, I'm using the drive, I'm liking the drive, I'm backing up my music and things, but I mean, you said to me, you showed me that there was all these other particular bits of software that were available as a functionality within this Google Apps suite. So what other things can I use in a business typically that you know of that I've yet to discover?
Well, this Hangouts, for example, I mean, that's how we're doing this broadcast today, which becomes standard as part of the app suite. And you've got things like shared calendars, and you've got contact management, and you've got email, very similar to the Gmail platform. But one of the benefits of moving to a commercial piece of online software, if you like, versus the free version is the spam filtering that you get, the authentication. So when people send emails, Google will make sure that it's not a spam email, and if it is, you never see it. So that's a real big benefit. And one of the other things that a lot of people struggle with free software is when it doesn't work, where do you go? So you get free 24/7 telephone support with Google Apps. So when you're running a small business, that's a real benefit. And obviously, a lot of our clients like to speak to us directly. But if we're not available, they've got the luxury of phoning Google and having somebody there answer their questions.
Sorry to interrupt, but I did notice, having used that helpline, that it was really, really quite good actually, because we weren't sure that, well, we had to migrate obviously followers from Google Plus over from one account to another, and we weren't sure everything had come across, but they were able to get into that and get some clarity on it for us. And So, and I think I must have phoned them, what, 9 o'clock at night, 9:30 or something like that. So, and they were obviously there and able to help. So I can definitely recommend that in terms of a support structure. And of course, it's nice just knowing there is a helpline there that you can call, because that was the problem when I was in the free service. There was nobody to call, so it just gets put to one side, and you just forget about it because it's too much of a problem to deal with. You've got more important, urgent things to be getting on with, as we all have. So saving money. Well, I think we've probably talked about that one. Obviously, you're not paying for hardware. You've got the benefits of scaling up. You can save money in terms of just paying £33 per year.
And I'd like to interrupt you there.
Mm.
A lot of people say £33 and they don't hear the per year bit. They often look and say per month. It's £33 per year. That's a good offering.
Yeah, it is, particularly when you think of the helpline as well, and the suite that you've got in terms of the software that's available. And saving time, well, I think you demonstrate that brilliantly when you're out and about doing stuff in the fantastic weather we've had recently.
Well, I mean, that's another valid point. I mean, to try and get your head around some of this technology, I've travelled down to your office today. We're on your MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
I've logged into my account, and we're actually using my software on your machine in the cloud, and it just works. And I think, this paradigm that people have been talking about, I think a few years ago, is to call turnkey solutions, and you just think, I turn the key and it works. Invariably, anybody that's been there has sort of. But the beauty of this solution is, or this service is, that it just does work, doesn't it?
Yeah. One thing is my pet hate, and this is the one thing I found quite hard to get around, and I like the way that you don't talk in that kind of language, because turnkey solutions and all those phrases, just, I don't know what they mean. I don't really care what they mean, and I don't know if the people using them often know what they mean, to be honest with you. But I just need things that will work and make my life simple in terms of looking after clients. Because the one thing, of course, we all have is owner-operators, is that we're busy doing the job, and therefore we're not necessarily busy promoting what we do. And that's quite hard to get that balance right. So anything's going to save you time, and money's going to help you.
Absolutely. And not only, I mean, you asked the question about the tools within the Google Apps suite, there's core tools, but because there's the Google Apps marketplace, what Google have done is created a development environment for third parties to develop products. So if you were a slightly larger organization and you wanted a CRM package, you can add those tools into the suite of tools as well. So going to have a look at the marketplace, you might find a project management tool, or you might find an accounts package that you want to use. So it really does become a one-stop shop in terms of the replacement for Microsoft Office, the replacement for Microsoft Exchange and Outlook. If you want to continue to use Outlook, you can do. If you want to continue, as you do, to use Apple Mail, you can do. But the other additional services are all hosted from the cloud, both within the core suite of tools that Google provide, and then the additional tools that third parties provide to run businesses.
You mentioned Microsoft there, obviously, and Microsoft, presumably Office 365 is the competitive product. I mean, there's quite a few products in the marketplace. So why did you choose Google Apps as the one to go with, and what are the benefits over some of the competitors?
I think I often get accused of using Google Apps over Office 365. We actually provide both.
Right.
The real benefit for me, and why I think Google Apps is so good, is it doesn't really care what solution you use. So as as we've already said, you're an Apple fan, and it doesn't matter whether you're an Apple fan or not. And if you were a PC person, that doesn't matter. It will work with your mobile phone. I think, whilst I think Microsoft have done a fantastic job of getting computers into offices, it is fairly bespoke, and it is quite difficult to go to look at a competitor's product. And again, I think Apple have done a fantastic job also, but if you start to mix and match, that's when you start to see the problems, and that's why I suggest having a serious look at Google as a solution, because it will allow you not only to use your own hardware, but it will allow you to expand you know, the way you want to work rather than the way the service providers wanting you to work. I think that's the big differentiator.
So who's this good for? Who are the sort of people that you help the most?
We start with, you know, like we did, you know, sole traders or small businesses. Our biggest client has 40 employees, but Google as an organization have John Lewis in Waitrose, a recent convert to Google. Specsavers run their business on Google Apps. Jaguar Land Rover. Most of the national newspapers now are using this solution. And to be honest with you, I'm a Specsaver customer. I wouldn't know the difference. You know, it's business as usual. And that's the great thing, I think, of transitioning from perhaps a more traditional way of computing to a more modern way of computing. You just don't know. It's a seamless transition.
I should imagine there's quite a lot of fear in terms of doing this because, oh, you know, I'm fine with what I've got, just leave me be, you know, I don't want any more mess and more confusion and more change, because everybody hates change at the end of the day. So, I mean, my experience certainly was that it was a fairly painless experience, but how can you reassure people that actually, you know, there's not going to be, I mean, I remember asking you, for example, you know, well, when we change the email over, you know, is there going to be a gap, and will I get all my old emails? And everything was very, very simple, actually. But I suppose I was worrying about things I didn't understand and didn't know. So what can you say to people to reassure them about the changeover process?
We're actually adding functionality to your existing functionality, really. So if you were to take a trial, as I believe you did,
yeah,
nothing really changes. We've just got this added functionality on the side. So you were still able to use your main email system and all of the tools that you used, and we added this bit on the side. That allowed us to sort of test prior to actually deciding whether you wanted to actually transition or not. And then when you were happy that it was able to provide everything that I said it would, we were then able to plan as to what would be a good time to transition. And we always try and do that at a time that's convenient to a client, and invariably that's a Friday or over a weekend, so that the transition is done not in core business hours. And so that's a seamless transition, and then we copy your data over from your old system to the new system, so that when you come in on a Monday morning, everything's just done. So that's basically what we do.
So that point you made was quite important. I think that you said, you know, you're adding over the top. You're not actually, you know, stopping one thing and starting another. So you can actually run things concurrently, I guess. Is that right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, you spoke earlier with regards to slightly larger customers. There's a proven methodology. What we would do in an organization of, say, 40 employees is we would set up a system where a subset of employees would start to work with that system. Say 5 people would be part of the project team. So they would sort out the business processes, making sure that, you know, all the processes that exist today will work once the transition's made to Google. And you mentioned the word change management. Effectively, that's what we're doing. We're managing change, and the best way to manage change is to listen to people's concerns, work with them. And even, I know it sounds a bit bizarre, but it's almost like a bereavement. You actually have to say goodbye to the old system and allow that natural human process to take place, and then lead them to the new system. And as your experience proves, it was a painless exercise.
What are the biggest objections, if you like, the biggest concerns that people express to you when you're trying to persuade them to look at a product like this?
Well, I always find that there needs to be a reason to change. I mean, this year's a good example. Microsoft retired an operating system that was 13 years old, Windows XP, and I think I think a lot of people, for a lot of people, that was the first time they started to store photographs and maybe music on a computer. So to move that from whatever they have now to a new system, if you don't know how to do that, it's a problem. So having a reason to change is a good way of looking as to why I might change to another system. And effectively what we do is we'll take your photographs, we'll take your music, we'll take everything that's important to you and move it to the new system. One of the other things that people recognize is everyone's got used to using Microsoft Office, and in some cases we've been able to save clients thousands of pounds by moving to Google. So what we're able to do is to provide a service of training. You can continue to use Microsoft Office, that's not a problem. So if you use Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you can continue to use that with Google Drive. But if you wanted to start to look at some of the services that Google offer within Google Drive with their own equivalent Word, Excel and PowerPoint, you can start to reap the benefits of doing things like real-time collaboration. Do you remember when we did that for the first time?
Scary.
So we had a spreadsheet and we were both logged into the same spreadsheet at the same time, and you were adding information and I was adding information, and you're right, you know, in years gone by that would be an absolute no-no. But with a Google spreadsheet you can actually collaborate. So what that means in terms of time saving, the old way of doing it is you'd create the spreadsheet, you'd send it as an attachment to me, I would then work on it, and if there was another 9 of me, you'd get 10 replies, and therefore you'd have 10 copies of your original spreadsheet to go through.
And you're forgetting it'd be too big to download, so you wouldn't have been able to get the attachment in the first place.
Absolutely right.
You were talking about Google and Macs and iOS and so on. Of course, Google have actually made an effort to make this all work nicely with iOS. I'm thinking particularly things like the iPad and the iPhone. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know there's a lot of talk with regards to, you know, there's people that like their mobile devices to be Apple, but Android, Google's operating system has taken huge market share. And again, it doesn't really matter if you have a preference to one over the other, because there's a whole application suite that will enable you to take advantage of Google's tools on iOS. So if you're a, if you're a iPad or an iPhone fan, not a problem. You can continue to use your favorite devices, but then gain the benefit of a cloud-based system. And as I said earlier, if you take your computer, if you think of your PC and you've kind of thrown it up into the cloud, and then you're using your tablet to access your computer, that's effectively what we're doing. So I know it's called cloud computing and people kind of think that's all a bit scary, but if you just think of it as your personal computer in the cloud that you can gain access to on any device at any location at any time, that's effectively what Google Apps is.
You've been really forging ahead with Google Plus, I notice, and you know, building your circles, etc. What sort of things are you helping people with when you're on your profile, and what sort of support are you giving to people in the communities?
Well, again, I think Google Plus has been called a ghost town. I've been able to network brilliantly with people from all over the world. There's a massive community. Donna Beckett has done a fantastic job with the UK Connect community. There's nearly 1,000 people using Google Plus, and there's a number of people in the UK that want to kind of take the lead. Met another guy called Phil Aston, who's doing some fantastic stuff with Hangouts. Sheila and I met through Hangouts and Google Plus, so it's a fantastic networking tool. We've also met people in the United States. So I've been able to build quite an extensive contact base, really. And if people have problems, what I really love about Google Plus by comparison to perhaps some of the other social media is it's more interactive than anything I've ever worked with before. So if somebody says, can you help me with, there'll be somebody there that can. In addition to that, we've created a Webster Consulting community. So if you specifically want to work within a group, so a community is a bit like if we were walking down Oxford Street, for example, loads of people coming towards us, and you might see somebody with a Gap bag, and you happen to have a Gap bag as well. So you know that you've got something in common with them in that you both shop at Gap. A community is like going to the Gap store, so you've got like-minded people that are coming out of the mainstream into specific niches of interest. So if you had a particular interest in photography, for example, you'll find lots of communities out there that are just talking about that.
I'm beginning to see it actually as a kind of, I know everyone says that LinkedIn is the business Facebook, but in actual fact, because of the layout of Google Plus being more like a Facebook timeline layout, I know LinkedIn's moving that way all the time. They all seem to be converging on each other and taking each other's USP and trying to make it their own as well. But I'm beginning to see that notion of, you know, a post in a timeline with comments underneath. But looking at the audience that seems to be attracted in the communities that we've been looking at, and the sort of people that are following me, for example, and putting me in circles, these are, I would say, sort of typical small business people who would normally you'd expect to find on a LinkedIn, which is why I think you would look at Google Plus as perhaps becoming a kind of a business Facebook, even though that's the name that LinkedIn seems to have. But certainly it surprised me, as you rightly say, the amount of engagement and the willingness to help that people have. So in terms
can we have a couple of questions at this point?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We have somebody in the audience, Al Navas, who first of all found the content excellent. He was enjoying the content greatly. He wanted to ask you, why are you using Webinar Jam? What's your reason today for choosing Webinar Jam rather than Google Plus's own Hangouts on Air?
That's a great question. There was an offer made by Webinar Jam earlier this year where they gave you a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to use Webinar Jam, which effectively allows the administration and organisation of webinars to be done in a more traditional way. It's built on Hangout technology, but basically it enables the administration, the registration. We can do offers to people that have registered, which we will end the webinar today with. So we can. It's a much simpler sales and marketing tool than organising a similar thing, doing Hangouts on Air. But you can do. It's very flexible. You could do a Hangout on Air, but we wanted to use Webinar Jam because we've made an investment and we thought we would give it a go.
It's kind of like it's like a Google Hangout, but with Eventbrite on the back of it, isn't it? Really, in some respects.
Yeah,
it's got that kind of functionality, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great way to sum it up.
It's quite clever. I haven't used it yet, but I've been watching you use it, and I think it's just quite clever.
And he has another question that I think I can handle. He wanted to know if the chat can be viewed by all attendees, because he noticed his earlier questions disappeared when he refreshed the page. Well,
I think that is your question.
Webinar Jam allows you to make a decision whether or not you want to have everybody's comments all there simultaneously, or whether you want to handle people individually, or whether you want a mix of that. It's a choice we made. We just decided that we would prefer on this occasion to have private chats, so that's the reason why Al can't see anybody else's chat. But he had one more question about the like button. Apparently and we would have to check this out, I think, he found at the top of the webinar that the like button didn't actually give the choice of Google Plus. It was, you could only like to Facebook and one other, which again is down the bottom of the stream, and I'll have trouble finding it. But we need to just check that out as well.
Yep, and thank you for that feedback.
And I have one question, then I'll be quiet. When I first met you, Dave, I was very pro Google anyway, and I had many of my systems in the cloud. But you advised me at that stage to switch to the free Google Apps, and I did so. I didn't really know very much about the paid Google Apps, but would you tend to take people along that route, or do you just advise going straight into the full suite?
Unfortunately, the free option isn't available anymore. It's paid or Gmail. So I think that sort of answered itself. But when we when we talk about the paid version, when you think of all of the benefits that you get for £33 a year, it's a well-priced package. And to look at Office 365, for example, and wanting the connectivity that you would want to be able to use any device, the Microsoft licensing, I should know, I worked there for a number of years, is complex, and there's always tiers to the licensing. So to be able to use an iPad, for example, with Office 365 will cost you around £180 a year, by comparison to 33. So I think Google have done a fantastic job, and it doesn't matter whether you want one license or 100,000 licenses, it's £33. It's really simple.
Thank you.
What are we up to? I've no idea on the time. We should have set a timer.
We should have set a timer.
That's a lesson to learn from this.
You're just on the half hour.
Have we?
And may I ask one more question, because it interests me. If you have an application that is not part of the Google Suite, and you subscribe to Google Apps for Business, can your software be in that cloud suite as well? And I'm thinking specifically of the one that I use called Sparkle Video Scribe, which has nothing to do with Microsoft or Google, or is it a different person?
There are developers that are developing software for, like I say, the Google Apps Marketplace, and you've also got the Google Chrome store as well, where you can find extensions and add-ons. What I would do, and I frequently do, when I look at buying software now, I actually ask the support organization what their future roadmap is with regards to moving from on-premise software to cloud-based software, and whether they have any plans to obviously develop their software further so that it works on a Google platform.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
So I guess we are coming close to the 30 minutes. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank you for doing this. It's
my pleasure.
It's been good, and I just wanted to make a special offer to people that are watching us today. If you did register for this webinar, what we're doing for the next week is offering you the opportunity to try Google Apps for yourself. So if you wanted to demo Google Apps and have a free trial, and you decide that you want to do that within the next week, we'll offer that to you free of charge. So that's an offer to everybody that's registered today to watch this webinar. We will offer you a free Google Apps trial. So sign up as quickly as you like.
And how long would that trial last for, Dave?
The trial is 30 days,
30 days.
but as we explained when Paul and I were talking, it's not going to affect anything that you do currently. It's just that we'll set it up on your domain so that you can have a play, and if you want to convert at the end of the 30 days, we'll help you with that. If you choose that not to pursue, then you just stay as you are. So there's no obligation.
Okay, and before you go, I have another message from Joe, which says, I think Joe is female, but I'm not sure because it's J-O, but I'll assume that. She says, have I misunderstood, or does the £33 mean that you have access to the latest version of Office with Word and PowerPoint, etc., but don't have to pay the £200? So I think maybe she has misunderstood, or he has misunderstood.
So that the answer to the question is you don't have access to any Microsoft software. I mean, most people have a full package product installed on their computer, so they could start to save their documents within the Google Cloud, but you'd still have to have the Microsoft software on your computer. There is the facility to generate Word documents or the equivalent of Word documents, PowerPoint slides and spreadsheets within Google Drive, but and you can save them as Word documents or PDFs. But what I would suggest, Joe, is take us up on our offer, and we will allow you to have that free trial, and you can try some of these things, as I say, without obligation.
If I can just come in on that, because I've been through that process with Dave as well, and I would just say that as I alluded to when I was talking earlier, Dave does put it in layman's terms, so you don't get bamboozled, and you do understand what he's actually saying to you, because he has got this ability to put it in a language that non-sort of particularly techie people like me do understand. And secondly, you know, actually you're not going to really break anything by giving it a go, because you're actually putting something on top, you're not taking something away, so it's a no-brainer really to have a go, because you're not going to harm anything, and you're just going to see what's available, and if you like it, as I did, then you're going to go for it.
Any final questions, Sheila?
No, I think that's it.
Did nobody comment on our pajamas?
We need to coordinate wardrobes next time, I think. Anyway, without further ado, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon, and we do plan to run a series of these webinars, so if you would like to comment in terms of what you would like us to talk about, I'd be more than happy to listen to those and start to, you know, answer some of the questions with regards to cloud computing. So thanks very much, and have a great weekend.